Sanele, thanks very much for your time today to chat to me. As I said to you, I think we all go through interesting things as leaders, and there's different topics that I've started to reflect on personally. And one of those in particular is all about the lonely journey of leadership, which I think a lot of people tend to think is quite glamorous. A lot of people probably tend to think, you arrive and everything is just hunky dory. But there's a lot that we go through as leaders. So I appreciate your insights, and I think the first thing I'd want to ask is maybe, do you have any reflections, any memorable experiences with either leaders or managers in your career? Is there any moments that in your mind are like standout moments for someone that you felt was actually a particularly good manager or leader?
I think I've got quite a few, but the one that really, I think, stood out for me in my journey was, I won't mention where I was working,
No,
but I was in but I had just joined the company in South Africa, and it was like the head office, obviously. And as I was walking into the elevator, I happened to walk into the elevator together with the CEO. Obviously, I am nervous and thinking to myself, oh my God, what am I going to say?
Elevator pitch.
And I'm like, oh, you know this, and I'm like, okay, but he's there. He's like, oh, hi, Sanel. I'm like, okay, he remembers my name.
Wow.
Hi, and he says, how are you? How is South Africa treating you? Because obviously I'm from Swaziland, and he's like, how is South Africa treating you? I'm like, oh, he knows I'm here full time, at my level.
Yeah.
So so there I am, telling him where I'm staying. He's asking me, where am I staying? How is the traffic? And so on. And I was lucky because I started my job in December, so there was not much traffic around that time. And he asked me about the work itself. For me, that was impressive because I was like, okay, as senior as you are, I would have expected maybe my boss's boss to know it, but you are my boss's boss's boss. And you know all these things about me, you know everything about what I do, and you are asking me all the right questions. I was honestly impressed. And I was a brand manager just for one brand. And we've got so many brands. We had so many brands. And for him to know so much about just this one brand was really impressive. For me, it was really impressive. And also just getting to understand the importance of understanding the profitability of the brand that I was working on. Because he started asking me about the income statement of the brand, and I was like,
I've just started here. Hey, whoa.
Exactly. But for me, that was quite an impressive encounter. And I was like, if I could be like that at some point, I would have done well for myself.
Wow.
So sometimes, yes, I do go back to that moment and wonder how I can actually get to that point just for myself.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, it's like almost the attention to detail when you pay attention to people, and you take the time to care about people, about where you're living, how traffic is, etc., etc. And that's, for me, also one of the key roles or characteristics, anyway, of a leader. What do you think? I mean, if you look at that as a reflection, and you probably broaden your scope, what do you think the role then of individuals like that is in society, in businesses, wherever? Because leader, that trait about being curious about other people, I think, is sometimes innate in you. So the role of leaders, I mean, what is your view on that? I mean, is it to make people feel good? Is it to drive results? Is it to keep you accountable?
I have found out that, Musa, it's actually quite a sensitive balance between caring about people, caring about the finances or the financial part of the business, caring about the society in which you are operating, also just caring about yourself as a person. So you normally find, oh gosh, sorry.
That's okay.
No, it's because of the one that's crying by the door wanting to come in. So for me, I find that it's a very sensitive balance, and like you rightly put it, you sort of need to have an you need to to have an empathetic kind of soul to know how to balance the two, or how to balance all these elements in order to achieve what you need to achieve with the people that you work with, for the shareholders, because I mean they're expecting monies. You can't be making people happy at work and then you're not delivering for the shareholders. Also, the community in which you're operating, they're expecting you to be giving them something, and so. And then you as a person as well, you need to be taking care of all these things, but who's taking care of you at that point in time?
Absolutely.
So you also need to find ways to take care of yourself, which sometimes is a bit tricky. We won't have the time, or most people do not understand. So if you're coming and I'm saying, Musa, I have this issue, Musa's like, what are you talking about? Nice life problems. And you're like, oh my gosh, can I just move on and try and find a way to resolve this issue without bouncing it off anyone, because people will not get what I'm going through right now. So I think the role of a leader is quite a delicate one. And you need to make sure that you are balancing almost all the elements, or in terms of your stakeholders, making sure that all are satisfied. But can you read that perfectly? No, it's the issue. And at some point, you find yourself needing to prioritize between one stakeholder for another. But at the end of the day, you have to give it your best. And just take cognizance of this.
And all of us are human, right? And so that's the difficult part, is when you're appointed into leadership positions, or in positions where you have to lead. Sometimes, ultimately there are bad leaders who start to pretend like they are gods, and so people forget that you're just a human being, and vice versa. You may just be trying to be a human being, and other people are trying to put you on this pedestal and treat you like a god. So it's really difficult. And the balance. I mean, how do you find the balance between leading people and managing people? Because that's also very tricky. To your point, there's lots of stakeholders to balance. How do you differentiate between the two?
Sometimes I find that in managing people, sometimes because of the challenges of being a leader, in terms of managing people, you do tend sometimes to miss some of the most critical elements. Like, some people want to be connected with at a more personal level than others. But like you rightly say, you've got so many pressures as a leader. And managing the people almost becomes a second, what's the word? Almost becomes like a second thing. So maybe the first thing is being the leader, and then the second thing is managing them. And also sometimes I have found myself where I tell myself, you know what, this person is mature enough, they can manage themselves.
Do without me.
I need to find that the person actually needed more caring than I thought, because of issues they were having beyond work. And this is a good employee that is delivering. It was a matter of having to now say, okay, you know what is really going on? Because I've known you to be this, and now you are doing this. What's going on? But in all honesty, it took me a bit longer. I'm not sure whether I'm still learning, but it did take me a bit longer than necessary to actually pick up that it's probably more than just the work that's affecting this person, and getting to the point of sitting down and thrashing out whatever issues and finding a way to work together in order to help her resolve the issues that she was having. Musa, it's a, I don't know how to explain it, and I think it's probably different for different people. Like you rightly say, there's a person who decides, you know what, I'm the boss, I'm not going to be engaging you, I'm just going to be telling you what to do, and then they just become dictators. And they become dictators, and you find people crying in corners because of the management style. And then you find that there are those that are and then you find that there are those that are like, nah, you all know what it is that you need to do, I'm not going to be involved, go and do your own thing, and so on. Only when Popo hits the fan and he's like, what happened?
But then it's too late, right?
And then you realize, you know what, you need to find your own style of management and
Yeah,
leadership that you're going to be comfortable with.
yeah,
That's going to complement you as a person, your personality, but also complement your lifestyle, because you don't want, personally, I don't want to be mixing work and
yeah,
my
yeah,
personal
definitely.
lifestyle a lot.
Yeah,
But some people, it works for them. They want to be going out and having drinks with their people and employees, and it works for them. But for me,
mm, yeah.
not so much.
That's where you draw the line. And you look, that's fair because ultimately you have to manage yourself and you have to manage your home. Because you spend
Yeah.
a lot of time taking care of other people, which is what you were saying earlier on. And so my question to you is then, how do you take care of self? Because this journey is long, and I'm pretty sure during COVID-19, during your own reflections, you might have found yourself in a place of being very lonely. And how do you navigate that? How do you think about that?
Um, when there are times when you're in the office, I'm just thinking that there are times when you're in the office and you're thinking, oh, I'll go and have lunch. And before you know it, everyone else has had lunch. They've rushed to have lunch before you, so that by the time you go and have lunch, no one is in the canteen. So now you're sitting, and now, you're sitting there, you're like, I just need to connect with someone. I just need to connect with someone. And obviously, the people around you are either not comfortable connecting with you,
Mm,
not because they are scared of you, but they're probably because they're scared they might say the wrong thing, or you might take them the wrong way.
yeah.
Career limiting moves or career limiting statements that they might make in front of you.
It's the same way. Remember, you were
So
feeling
sometimes
when you got in the elevator when you came to South Africa.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so most of the time when you do converse with them, it tends to be artificial or superficial,
Mm,
unless you're speaking about work. But when you're having lunch, sometimes you just want to relax and get out of the work mode so that
mm,
you take a break and before you go back. So when I find myself feeling a bit lonely, feeling a bit isolated,
mm.
I tend either, luckily, my current job involves a lot of customer relations. So I either go out and meet customers, find out what's happening with them, because then that takes away the stress of whatever was happening in the office.
Mm,
At times, I will call someone who's in the trade, and I'll be like, "Where are you? What's happening?" And I will use that moment to coach the person. Yes, it is work, but it's not the work that I do on a daily basis.
all right.
Because of managers who do that. But I will then say, okay, let me just go and meet up with someone and divert from what I normally do and coach someone in terms of what they're doing. Or I will just call a friend and be like, you know what, can we meet for lunch? And
Mm,
obviously it's not to talk about work, it's
mm,
just to catch up and bond on whatever
mm,
um, issues or whatever we are dealing with.
mm,
Sometimes I pray.
mm. That's how you keep
Sometimes I just use the opportunity. Luckily I still have an office. I know we are all moving towards open open plan concepts. I luckily still have an office, so I managed to close the office door and I just pray in the office. So
Yeah.
there's a number of ways that I try to deal with it.
Yeah. And if you were to think about your journey coming up, to where you are now, and you were to give, the 21, 22-year-old Sanele some advice around developing a way to, to counteract feeling lonely as you come up through the ranks, what are potentially some of the things you would have said to your 21-year-old self?
Don't take things personally.
Mm,
Would have been the first thing, because I have been lucky or unlucky or unfortunate in that I have grown with almost within the same industry. So I started off as a trainee within the beverages industry, and I'm now at a higher position still within the beverages industry. And the people I'm leading are people I've worked with my whole life. I may have taken a break to go and work somewhere else, but I mean, coming back, they're still the people that I've worked with. And at first, it was a shock when people suddenly changed from calling me Sanele to calling me Mage Kumalo, which is Mrs. Kumalo. I'm like, but dude, I know you.
You've arrived now. You've arrived.
You know, but I'm like, dude, I know you. It's me. I mean, can't you say it's me?
Yeah.
And then you're speaking to someone in the warehouse, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, Mage Kumalo, and you're like, no.
They're making you feel old, man.
You know? Yeah, and it's older people that are saying that. It's the people that you found already working for the business, and they are now calling you Mage or Mrs. And I'm like, no, man. So at first I actually took offense, and you know when people start creating WhatsApp groups that do not involve you, and someone will let it slip, and you're like, oh, there's a WhatsApp group that does not involve me. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay. But I mean, as I'm getting into the role and just going through the experiences, I've learned not to take it personal. It's obviously not about me. It's about them feeling comfortable to communicate, to talk to each other, because they also advise each other in terms of how to handle certain situations. And if I need to be approached, they will select the person to come and approach me and brief me in terms of, hey. I'm like, okay, I'm at that level where I need a representative to be spoken to. But what I like is also that the businesses I've worked for are very they're not too formal. So we still interact, they will still make jokes, we will still laugh and so on. So it's not like, oh, Mrs. Kumalo or whatever. And Mrs. Kumalo is just there as a sign of respect. But I mean, sometimes they will still speak nonsense as always. And we will laugh in the office as always. Which helps sometimes. But
And how do you create safe spaces, right? Where people can maybe lower their guards, and so can you, so that you can create a space where there is less kind of formality, less hierarchy, and maybe less pressure to have you as Mrs. Kumalo, and then there's me. How do you create such a space? And as you lead a team, and obviously you've got diverse people in your team, as I said, there's older people that are referring to you, very respectfully. You probably have younger people. Have you been able to find a way to try and create this kind of environment that allows people to lower their guards and show up as themselves, so that you can connect with them?
For me, for now, Musa, is going big and celebrating everything, every small achievement. The business that I am with right now is a very new business. I think we are now a year old.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday.
We are now a year old, and what I have done, or the opportunity that I've used so far, has been to celebrate every little moment. So it's a cake here. Guys, come this is what we've achieved, and everyone is speaking, we're having cake. Or it's a lunch here, guys, we've ordered platters from Nando's, come, let's celebrate, this is what we have achieved now. Or sometimes I even use my own money, because I mean, obviously you can't be just using company monies, but the intent is to make sure that people, we are not only just celebrating the achievements as a business, but we are also providing the safe space where people, because once you are in that celebratory mode, people tend to relax. People tend to come up with ideas and say, actually, this is how we can improve. But if you're in like a formal meeting setup kind of boardroom, they shy to say that. But in a more informal setting, then they come to you and say, you know what? If we did this at the gate, it would help us to lower the amount of stock that we lose because of ABCD. You're like, great idea. How come you've been quiet about this? No, I told so and so, and I've told so and so. For me, for now, it has been just celebrating the milestones that we have been achieving as a business. But going forward, I think I come from very entertaining industries, and there's so many opportunities for us that we can probably use or leverage within our industry just to drive that those interactions outside of work, to help people to be free, to help people to feel a bit more relaxed, to help people to reach out to people they would normally not reach out to, because it's not about them talking to me. It's also being able to reach out to the finance person and saying, hey, I know I'm in sales, but this is what I'm thinking from a finance perspective. What if we do that? So to encourage that mixing up and not the working in silos too much, because that's what we do automatically on a daily basis. We find ourselves working in silos. So to try and break those down, we need to have those interactions now and again.
Okay, and tell me, I mean, what's it like balancing the Mrs. Kumalo hat when you're at the office, and then when you have to take off the Mrs. Kumalo hat and you have to be in the home context or even in the social context or even the cultural context, right? You are potentially, someone's daughter-in-law or someone's, niece. Do you see those dynamics impacting on, either helping to deal with loneliness, or does it make it worse?
I think I came to a point. There was a there was a time when you would see that, like even my father, I'll make an example. He would come to me first to talk about something, and I'd say to him. At first, I would engage him and I would give him ideas, and I realized that obviously my older siblings, not in a bad way. It's just a cultural thing. Everything should be done with me first as the senior or the older sibling before we tell the younger siblings. But now you've gone and spoken to the younger person before speaking to me, and some were probably not taking it as it was meant. That, you know what, I just thought this person might give me the idea I was looking for, and to avoid, because I think I got to a point where I was burning out, Musa, where I was just tired, and I had to sit down and say, what are the things that I can do or change in order to give myself that space, that brings space, or that space to recover, that space to recuperate before I go back to work again. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to be Maga Kumalo, Mrs. Kumalo at work. Because at work I have to be the person making the decisions. I am the person that it's almost like, yes, the buck ends with, it stops with me when we're at work.
Yeah.
And when I'm not at work, I'm not going to take positions that are not mine.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you want me to go and head a committee somewhere that is not going, that is just going to add on my stress, I politely decline, and I will politely decline and say, we've got so many capable people here who can do it. Can we not appoint so and so? And if that person needs help, then I can assist. If it's at home, I always tell my dad, have you spoken to my older brother first? Speak to him, hear what he has to say, because I just don't want to take on positions that are not mine. I am happy for someone else to take over outside of work. In society, like you rightly say, when I'm with my mother-in-law, I'm happy for my brother-in-law's wife to take over. She's the older wife, and I just take instructions like going to. For once, I'm not giving the instructions. So for me, the reversal of the roles gives me the much needed space to breathe, not to think, and just to be almost like the employers themselves, now and again, who don't really care about the nitty-gritties of whatever it is that I'm stressing about.
Sure.
But
that's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. I mean,
so that's what I normally do.
I think creating that space, it's actually very strategic. So, well done for thinking about it that way, because generally what happens is if you're a leader in in your work context, you tend to carry that mantle with you everywhere you go. So you must be a leader here. You must be, and to your point, that is a very, very clear recipe for burnout and all sorts of other things, which I'm sure a lot of people face. So I think that's very strategic of you, and also very wise.
Yeah.
The one?
Nah, there was just no way, Musa. At first, it was like, this is how the people see me, therefore I need to respond and help and assist. But I realized, you know what, I can't. It's just I can't do this everywhere, because even when you get home, um, Mom, what's for supper? Mom, what's this? Mom, what's that?
Yeah.
And then you get out of the house, and then you go to work. Maikumalo, what's this? Maikumalo, what's that? Maikumalo, what do we do that? And then you go into the community, and you still get, what do you think we should do with this? What?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a
Enough
lot.
is enough. I need to make that decision. For my own sanity, and also I think it helps to say, okay, what are my priorities? Yes,
Mhm.
community is very key, and I will support where I need to. When in need, I will definitely support, and I do support. But I try, if I can, get out of not being heavily involved, to not be heavily involved in things that I can see. But I know sometimes you do find those worthy projects where it's either talking to abused women, or for me, those are things that are close to my heart. So if I
Yeah.
not talking to abused women, it's talking to the girl child. Sometimes it talks about even helping the boy child catch up
Mm.
with where the girl child is.
Mm.
Um, those initiatives, I look at them and I'll be like, okay, this I can definitely put my brains in there. I will help. I will support. And
Mm.
then there are other initiatives where, like, no, you know what, there are people who are specialists in doing this,
Yeah.
who are more than capable, who are more capable than I am in terms
Yeah.
of doing this. But if they need my help, I'll be there to assist. But let me just be honest with myself. I can't be a jack of all trades.
Mm.
Let's give other people a chance, and then I will support if I have to. And in most cases, Musa, you actually find that the people you have recommended actually just tend to run with these projects on their own, or with these
Yeah.
committees on their own, without needing your assistance, because they know exactly what it is they're supposed to do. And also just appreciating that, you know what, I am a marketer, for instance. I
Mm.
am not a HR specialist. Therefore,
Mm.
I understand you came and asked me to do this with the HR people, but in all honesty, there is this person who's an expert in this area. Can you
Mm.
not just engage that person instead of me? So
Okay.
yeah, it helps.
All right. No, fantastic. Sanele, just to end off, I mean, there's probably, many young budding executives that are female and that happen to be, in really strong positions from a corporate perspective. I mean, what words of wisdom would you give them, to manage, avoiding getting lonely, to keep leading as a strong and empowered individual, but at the same time, not to lose your sanity, not to become a slave to the system and burn out. What would be
Mm.
your words of advice?
For me, it's just be true to yourself, eh?
Mm.
Don't try to impress the next person in terms of what you're doing, because that's when you'll start burning out.
Mm.
You will start taking on things that you're not supposed to be taking on, because you want to impress a third party.
Mm.
So be true to yourself, understand your time, prioritize your stakeholders. You know who your stakeholders are. Prioritize them accordingly, so that should you find yourself pressed for time, you know exactly who to deal with first,
Mm.
before the next stakeholder, and so on. And most importantly, you must also trust your gut feeling. We talk about sometimes gut feeling in passing, but sometimes it guides you. It just tells you that, you know what, you are making the right decision, or you are not making the right decision. And I know it's easy to say believe in yourself, than to actually believe in yourself. But you need to get to that point where you believe in yourself,
Mm.
and find a person to speak to within the business. I have been lucky that I've worked in businesses where it's been easy to find someone within the structure, even if the person is not close to me in proximity, but
Mm.
there could be a phone call away, there could be a WhatsApp message away, but that person is always ready and willing to listen to you,
Mm.
and actually brainstorm with you. Obviously, a much senior person, that's what I'm referring to. So for me, my bosses have been lucky. Bosses I've heard have been very open people. Um, Even when I'm feeling like, you know what, this is about to kill me now, I call and I say, you know what we are doing here, this is what is happening,
Mm.
this is about to break me now. And he will say, no, 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 this happens, this, just do this, just do this, just do that. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable to the right people. Just find the right people to be vulnerable to.
That's great advice.
And yeah.
That's great advice. No, thank you.
And yeah.
Thank you, Sanel. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your honesty, and it really is a good reflection on where you are. And I think it's always refreshing sometimes. When you go through things and you think you're on your own. Sometimes it's great to to speak to other people and realize that other people are going through the same thing. So
Exactly.
I really really do appreciate your time. I wish you all the best and more and more and more success. You've done so well. It's like we've been watching each other grow up since the NBA. Now,
I know, hey?
So I'm super proud of you, my friend, and all the best in the future with your family and all your professional plans as well.
Thank you so much, Musa.
Absolute
You
pleasure.
have done so well yourself, hey? So
You.
now I'll come for the millions. Just let me know when. I'll come with you in Mesh and I'll just chow the millions.
Okay, Mrs. Kumalo, no problem.